Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
This is Sunbelt Commissioner Keith Gill, and I listen to the Fun Belt Podcast.
This is the Fun Belt Podcast, part of the Believe Network.
Folks, to Dusty Thibodeau of Warhawk Report, Jeremy Harper of Powell Razor, and Shane Metlin of the Daily News Record.
I think it's potentially a very good week for the Sun Belts.
But I'm just kind of going off on a random rant. It's just frustrating. It's
Welcome back to the Fun Belt Podcast. You heard the voice of Thibodeau, Dusty Thibodeau, but he's not here tonight. He's working hard. He's in the real world right now. Like Shane Metlin's here. Shane and I are in the bubble universe that is the Sun Belt universe. But Thibodeau has punctured the membrane. He has escaped that bubble. And he's out in the real world doing real world stuff. He can't make it tonight. So Shane, it's just me and you.
Yeah. It's always going to be, seems like one of us always has something going on. It's been hard to get all three of us together lately.
I know, I think the last, what was it? Where was I last? Oh, yeah. I was having drinks. I was making merry that night. I couldn't make it. So I couldn't make it last week for Second and Short. I'm sure it was a great show. Was it a good show?
It was a pretty good show. We did all right.
I bet it was much more professional.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Well, what you did was discuss the games that we're going to briefly discuss right now. Like that first game was the Thursday night game on October 9th, right? Georgia Southern and Southern Miss. The battle of the Southerns, the battle of the Eagles. Mm-hmm. One is just the Eagles. One is just the Golden Eagles. A little pretentious, but we'll let it slide. And
the Golden Eagle is its own thing. It's a different kind of eagle.
I guess so. There's a lot of quiet dignity.
Southern people, they're just too vague. We don't even know what kind of eagle that is. It looks like a bald eagle, I guess, but like,
have they ever cemented that? Have they ever certified what kind of eagle that is? Gus
has a white head, doesn't he?
He does. I just assumed he was a bald eagle.
Yeah, but it's a golden eagle's different kind of bird. So
yeah, golden eagle's almost like a hawk.
In this particular case, this is not a general statement. In this particular case, I am with Southern Miss. They got specific, and we know what kind of eagle they are.
I think that's good because in the Sun Belt, we have a lot of bird-related mascots. We have a lot of cat-related mascots, and we got a lot of bird-related mascots. I think it's better to be specific. Like, I hate that, there is when there's more than one of the same mascot in the same conference. But I digress. Southern Miss, Georgia Southern turned out to be a pretty damn good game, with Southern Miss coming out to that 28-point lead in the first half, and then Georgia Southern just charging back, but wasn't quite, I think, what was it, 28? Yes.
Yeah.
28 points in the second half. Couldn't quite overtake Southern Miss. J.C. French had an excellent game. Wasn't enough to overcome the even more excellent game. Well, I don't know if it's more excellent, but I will say Jeffrey Pittman, 140 yards and 2 touchdowns. It's pretty tough to overcome.
Charles Huff must have been having some deja vu there for a little bit. Like watching that Georgia Southern comeback and after what happened against them last year when he was at Marshall. But he pulled it off this time. So
yeah, he probably was munching on the antacids, and
that would have been pretty tough if that had happened to you 2 years in a row.
All right, speaking of a game that was a pretty good game for a while, and maybe a game that was a lot closer than some people thought it was going to be, Shane. James Madison escapes the Cajuns, or I guess the Cajuns were at James Madison, right? 24-14, but it was a tight game until the fourth quarter.
Yeah, it was one of those games, and Jamie's had a few of those this year now, where you look at the stats and it's like, wow, they're just totally racking up yards, and the other team can't move the ball, and doubled them up on first downs, and they didn't even have a ton of turnovers. They had 1 or 2, but And
Yep.
you're wondering, like, how is JMU not winning this game by a lot, let alone trailing at times? And that seems to be a creeping issue for JMU, is that they're moving the ball but not putting points on the board, especially early in the games. And I don't know at what point that becomes an issue that hurts them, but they've got to start taking advantage of the opportunities they have when they get into the opponent's territory, because it's kind of becoming a trend.
Yeah, Alonzo Barnett did have an Alonzo Barnett type of game. Almost 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, had that interception. I tell you who stepped up to the game, though, was that James Madison run defense. 45 total yards for the Cajuns on the ground. That's going to work all day long. Now, Lunch Winfield did manage to put up 243 yards receiving and 2 touchdowns. That's what made it close. But yeah, we're not quite seeing that same JMU defense that we've seen in years past. I think what we're hoping for, just for the sake of entertainment, is maybe that's a chink in the armor for this next day. We'll talk about the big game in a little bit. Okay. So anyway, App State, they take care of business over Georgia State 41-20. Not much to talk about there. Big surprise, though, Shane. Marshall just absolutely curb stomps Old Dominion 48-24. Oh my God! It was like Marshall was just pounding points in the second half, and then did the exact same thing to them in the first half, and then the exact same thing in the second half. What the hell happened to Old Dominion?
I'm not quite sure. I mean, the turnovers, that was a huge part of it. But yeah, it was one of those ones where I wasn't shocked to see ODU lose. That was, pretty tough one. You go play on the road, like you can lose anytime in the Sun Belt when you're on the road. But yeah, the score was shocking. The fact that they were never really in it, that Marshall just kind of ran all over them. But I don't know if we're talking enough. We mention a lot of quarterbacks every week. Are we not talking enough about Carlos Del Rio Wilson at Marshall? Yeah. He is having a heck of a year and has now led them to, some pretty good victories.
Yeah, 4 total touchdowns for Carlos Del Rio Wilson. Had the kind of game that you would expect from Colton Joseph. Colton Joseph, 2 interceptions, 3 more fumbles from the offense at Old Dominion, 5 total turnovers. You're just not going to win a game like that. But yeah, I think Carlos Del Rio Wilson kind of started slow, or I think maybe somebody started ahead of him, right? Wasn't it Jack Kwai Long? Wasn't he the original starter on the team?
I think so, yeah. But it does feel like he kind of came out of nowhere, especially if you weren't paying that much attention to Marshall, and I'll admit, I wasn't necessarily at times when they got off to a little slow start, but I ended up watching that overtime game at Louisiana, and yeah, that guy is just impressive. And he was a 4-star recruit way back when. So he's one of those guys you kind of forget that what they were regarded as when they came out of high school. But yeah, I think Marshall is a team to watch going forward now that they kind of have that quarterback situation settled.
Yeah, you know what? Another team that kind of reminds me of a team that has suddenly found their quarterback and could be a team to watch is Troy. Troy takes out Texas State. Texas State, once again, gets out to a crazy 28-7 lead in the first quarter. And then the defense just cannot hold on to it. Troy behind Kilcrease. I thought Kilcrease, or Tucker Kilcrease, looked absolutely great in that game. I caught the last half of that game, and he was throwing some darts out there. Troy ends up winning in overtime. Their second overtime victory in a row, 48-41. What do you think about Troy? And what do you think? No, actually, Troy's doing pretty good. I think we can all appreciate what's going on with Jared Parker and Troy. It's what the hell's happening to Texas State might be the bigger story.
Yeah, Texas State, it's just turned into another one of those Texas State years where they're going to sneak into a bowl game. They're probably going to have a winning record. They're going to be fine, but why aren't they a little bit better than they are? Why aren't they a true contender in the West? Like they should be year in, year out. GJ Kinney there is just kind of in that weird zone where, yeah, he's clearly better than what they've had. He's doing okay, but you're paying him like a guy who should be winning 10, 11 games a year for you. You've got a lot of resources there. You're moving, quote unquote, up to the Pac-12, and you're just kind of like uninspiring at Texas State.
Yeah, if you believe the internet, GJ Kenny is the highest paid coach in the Sun Belt. And when you're the highest paid coach, hey, man, that comes with the responsibility of winning the most games, right? Isn't that what's expected? I don't know. I don't know if maybe he and his staff and maybe his team are looking ahead and not really focused on the now. I don't know. But, they come out with that 28-7 lead. They look like gangbusters. And then they just totally lose focus. They don't score. They score 10, 13 points for the rest of the game. Meanwhile, Troy just pours it on. Troy actually looks like a contender this year. They might be that sneak pick in the West. Last game in the West, West and East. Coastal Carolina once again kind of showing that under the right circumstances, they can win football games. They beat ULM 23-8. UL Monroe, or the Warhawks, they don't get any points until the third quarter. They pick up 8 total points. Don't score in the first, second, or fourth. Just the offensive woes kind of continue there for them. Meanwhile, Coastal Carolina, they weren't that much better. Their defense just sort of held better. I don't know what to think of Coastal Carolina, but I do know that UL Monroe kind of looks like a team that's going to struggle to get to that 6-game threshold.
Yeah, and this is probably the real reason Tibbs isn't here, is because a couple weeks ago we all thought ULM was on the way to like a pretty good season. We were all like through with Coastal. We were like, when's Tim Beck getting fired? Like we were done with Coastal. We didn't consider them for anything. And yeah, I mean, they're making some progress. And ULM, I still think that 6 win is possible. And I would like to see ULM get to a bowl game for, their long-suffering fans and Brian Vincent, who's doing double duty and everything else. It would be nice to see ULM get there. But yeah, it's tough. I think they're still in a position maybe too where last year we talked about how, they started so fast, but we found out that maybe they just hadn't recruited the depth yet. And I'm not sure if they've gotten it in year 2 yet either, because I think their first 11 on both sides of the ball are pretty good. But yet for some reason, you can take the, shellackings by the Power 2 conference teams that they play kind of out of the equation. I'm not putting too much stock into those either way.
Sure.
Particularly if we're talking about depth. But yeah, that's a disappointing one for ULM to not even be like all that competitive at Coastal Carolina.
Yeah. And, I think Tibbs was saying the weather was bad.
Yeah.
The weather's bad for both teams. It was funny. We were talking about how you were saying how we were both saying, oh, Tim Beck's in a lot of trouble. How does he sustain? How does Coastal Carolina keep him for another year with a season that's looking like this? Now he's kind of turned it around a little bit. But on the flip side, we're also talking about Brian Vincent. Oh, is this a guy who's going to, be in the name hunt for certain jobs that are opening up, in and around the Southwest area, whether we're talking about Arkansas or Oregon State, or not Oregon State, although Oregon State could be something like that, or Oklahoma State. Yeah, we kind of thought that maybe he was making a resume. Now I wonder if maybe both he and GJ Kenny are kind of performing their way out of those talks.
You never know. I mean, I think you still got to look at ULM and the resources they have versus the teams that they play, and realize that Brian Vincent is a good coach to have in a much better situation than they were in. But yeah, they might get to have him stick around for another year too, like the way things are going.
Speaking of the way things are going, Shane, things are going in this direction. We're talking about week 8. Week 8 of college football. It's a full slate of Sun Belt teams this time. All 14 teams in action for week 8, I think for the first time that we've seen just complete Sunbelt on Sunbelt action. And for you and I, without Tibbs, we're going to try to get through this. We're going to do a round of second and short. Are you ready for second and short?
Yeah.
Okay, you know how it works. We set up the games. We talk about it. We try to keep it under 2 minutes. That's the format of second and short. And we're going to start with a game that's already played, guys. Arkansas State guys. Shane. Tuesday, October 14th, Arkansas State Red Wolves took on the South Alabama Jags. It was at 6:30 p.m. on ESPN2. The Jags were a 6.5-point favorite, and man, it was a slog. It was nothing but flags. I think there were 25 flags thrown. A lot of it was false starts. During halftime, the ESPN2 announcers were practically begging for the teams to start playing a better game. Didn't really pick up until the fourth quarter when a little bit of offense happened. Arkansas State scores 12 points in the fourth to win the game. They win the game off of another missed kick. This time it was a field goal attempt from South Alabama that clings off the uprights. Arkansas State marches down the field and wins on a field goal. Another 1-point win for Arkansas State. Shane, did you see this game at all?
I didn't really see much of it, to be honest.
But do you think that at 1-6 that maybe Major Applewhite's in trouble?
Maybe. I don't know how much leeway does he get just with the fact that, you know, you have Bill Belichick step in and steal your quarterback kind of at the last minute, and, you know, you rearrange things that way. Like, I don't know. 1-6 is pretty disappointing, but you know, we're also in an era where things can turn around very quickly. Let's look at Troy. Like, you know, they were very terrible last year. It's early in the tenure. You know, maybe you learn lessons in how you're going to handle the portal going forward, whether it be protecting from poaching or reacting to losing somebody or having more quarterbacks in the system or whatever it happens to be. Maybe this is just a learning experience for everybody there. I don't know that you necessarily put him on the hot seat quite yet, but it's disappointing for sure.
Yeah, I think you give Major Applewhite some grace. There is, you know, our good friend Craig Stevenson did make some good points about how poorly coached the team seemed. Just so many penalties, so many opportunities wasted. Just an offensive play calling that just couldn't crack a Red Wolves defense that had trouble all year. So I don't know. It's strange. Arkansas State Red Wolves go up to 3-4. South Alabama drops to 1-6. It's a strange situation. But now we can start prognosticating, Shane Metlin, because these games have not yet happened, because they all occur Saturday, October 18th. The first being the Troy Trojans, somewhat surprising 4-2 at the Warhawks, 3-3. It starts at 2 p.m. on ESPN Plus. The Trojans are just a 5.5-point favorite, but man, Jared Parker, I keep wanting to call him Gerard, Jared Parker and Tucker Kilcrease are really getting it done for the Trojans. Shane Metlin, how do you see this game playing out?
Yeah, I like Troy. I like where they're heading. I like Tucker Kilcrease is looking really good. Yeah, and we're just not quite sure about ULM at this point, are we? Like, we talked about how it's hard to win on the road in this conference, but I think Troy is in position to get a win here, a hard-fought one, probably be a close game, but they come out of that looking like the favorite in the West at this point.
Yeah, you know, the Warhawks, they've only scored 15 points in their last 2 games, and they couldn't really solve a Coastal Carolina defense. They had just given up 47 points to Old Dominion. Aiden Armenta, I don't know. I don't know if they're using him correctly or if he's just not the guy. But they just need more offense. They've got the defenders. They got a good pass rush. They've got, you know, guys that can cover the pass. They just need to put points on the board. And although Monroe kind of gives the Warhawks some mystical strength, I mean, You saw what happened at James Madison last year when they went to Monroe. Things just get kind of wacky. But I think the Trojans are just too inevitable at the moment. I think they're feeling it behind Kilgreens. See, this is when we need Tibbs, right? He kind of gets things rolling. All right, though, we're going to soldier through. Coastal Carolina's up next. They're 3-3. They get Appalachian State 4-2 at 2:30 p.m. ESPN Plus. Appalachian State, they're 11.5-point favorite, and I don't know. Maybe the Mountaineers are for real, but I don't know. They have victories over winless Oregon State and 1-5 Georgia State, right? They've got the win over the Charlotte, which turns out not to be good. They have the FCS win. So I don't know if they've really been tested so far. Meanwhile, Coastal Carolina, they've kind of surprised us. We had declared them kind of cooked. They were ready to go. They hit some belt play, and they have 2 wins. Shane, on the Chanticleers, can we say they're back? Can we say they're contenders?
I think they're back to being competitive, and they may make this a pretty good game. But I do like App State in this, even as you pointed out. If you kind of dive into their 4-2 record, they haven't beat anybody particularly good, and they've lost to, when they've been challenged against solid G5 teams like Boise State or a Southern Miss, they haven't had great results. But I like them getting J.J. Cole in there at quarterback, the gigantic 6'7" monster, like throwing it all over the field. I think they have what it takes to beat Coastal at home, even a moderately improved Coastal team. They did kind of, win a game at home in a monsoon against ULM. That might have been a factor, as Tip would be saying if he was here.
He was here, yeah.
Yeah. So I think we've seen better performances out of Coastal recently, which is encouraging, but I just don't think they're going to get it done in Boone against App State that's got some offense going now.
Yeah, we were talking about ULM having possibly some problems at quarterback. It looks like Coastal might be kicking the tires on Samari Collier, formerly of Illinois. Tad Hudson, they might be, sitting down. He just got most of the snaps last game. Collier was only 5 for 15 passing, but he did throw a touchdown. So that was something that Hudson wasn't able to do. So, yeah, I think with Coastal struggling so hard on offense, I think the Mountaineers are just too good at Boone. Marquee matchup, guys. This is like it. This is the big game in the East. Old Dominion Monarchs, they're 4-2. We probably thought they were going to be 5-1, but they're 4-2. At James Madison Dukes, they're 5-1. 2:30 p.m. ESPNU national televised game. James Madison just a 1.5 favorite. Which, all right, that makes sense. The Monarchs are weird. Even though they lose to the Thundering Herd, that's just kind of on brand. That's almost like a psych job that Ricky Ronnie's doing right now. What else are you going to do? But now, Ricky Ronnie has to contend with the Duke's potent run game. Dukes are 15th nationally running, and James Madison draws awesome power from Harrisonburg. What do you see from this game?
Yeah, we need to know what ODU team is coming. It's a team that struggled with turnovers in some games. And, we talked about the weather for Coastal last week. One of the games where they had a lot of turnovers, that was also a very rainy game out there on the coast. ODU has a lot of turnovers. They have a lot of those turnovers in just 2 games, though. So if they can take care of the ball, I think they have a really good shot against JMU. Because, like we were talking about earlier, JMU's got to figure out how to make their opportunities into points, because they're just not going to get as many of those opportunities against a pretty good ODU defense. Like, as good as JMU's defense has been, which has been exceptional, ODU's second in the conference defensive. Yep. And so whichever team can take advantage of getting some opportunities in the red zone, I think is going to be the team that wins this one.
Yeah, and you talk about opportunities in the red zone. There has to be a concern from the Dukes that they haven't exactly lit up the scoreboard, especially against Georgia State and the Cajuns, two teams that have struggled in their own way. So obviously Bob Chesney's probably happy to have this game at home. But man, to me, this just feels like an opportunity for Ricky Ronnie to go 1,000,000% weird and deliver the upset. I'm calling upset here. I don't know if I'm confident in that upset. So hard to win in Harrisonburg. Duke's so tough against the run, but I guess we shall see. Next, at the same time, 2 p.m. on ESPN Plus, the Texas State Bobcats. They're 3-3. They take on those Marshall Thundering Herd and sort of their resurgence at quarterback. Bobcats are a 2.5-point favorite on the road, which I don't know if the odds makers are kind of looking at a Texas State from the first 3 or 4 games of the season, or if they've actually looked at what they've been doing now, because the farewell Sun Belt tour has not gone well for G.J. Kinney and the Bobcats.
Yeah, and I mean, looking at Marshall, the last 4 games, 38 points against Eastern Kentucky. Maybe that's not so much to write home about, but follow that up with 42 points, 54 points. That's an overtime game, but still 48 against ODU last year. They are scoring a ton of points lately. Now that we've talked about having Del Rio Wilson a quarterback, Texas State's defense has struggled, especially in the second half of these games lately. I don't necessarily understand this line with this game in Huntington. I like Marshall in this one.
Yeah, you know what it feels like to me, though? This feels like a you had better win this game, G.J. Kinney game. What? I'm sorry, what?
I said maybe, yeah.
Yeah, because you can't. You're already 0-2 in conference. To go 0-3, that's G.J. Kinney better bring his A game, and the Bobcats better figure it out, because Carlos Del Rio Wilson, I think, is the real deal. And they also have a rushing offense in Huntington that churns out nearly 200 yards per game. And that combination is pretty stout. And you got to hand it to Coach Gibson out there, who came out there with a pretty much an empty slate and filled it up with a bunch of guys. And now he's got a team that's actually a threat. So, yeah, I don't know if Texas State wins this game. In fact, I don't think they can. But I feel like G.J. Kinney is under a lot of pressure to throw the kitchen sink out there on Saturday. Southern Miss Golden Eagles. They're also surprised. Not surprising. I think we all thought they were going to be okay. But they're 4-2. And they take on the Raging Cajuns. They're 2-4. 4 p.m. on ESPN Plus. The Eagles of Gold are a 4.5-point favorite. And deservingly so. But the Cajuns may have found their quarterback. They were having a little trouble at quarterback, having a little trouble scoring, having a little trouble finding that right combination, and they might have found it with old Lunch. Lunch, what's his last name? Lunch Winfield, I'm sorry. Lunch Winfield threw a couple touchdowns last week. He looks promising. He can kind of run. He can kind of throw. He can kind of do a little bit of everything. There is a rumor floating around that Walker Howard, the season opener starter, is back in practice, that he might be getting close to being ready to go. But right now, this is Lunch's program. Shane, what do you see out of this game?
Yeah, I was going to mention, Walker Howard being a possibility to play. But
I scooped you.
I don't think they probably necessarily will go that. I wonder if that's even a little bit of the gamesmanship where you let that leak. Yeah, he's practicing.
Oh yeah, there he is. Okay,
he's 2 or 3 weeks away from coming back, because now you got to prepare for a couple different looks if you're Southern Miss. But Southern Miss has been playing well. Obviously, they're going to Lafayette, but kind of just like Charles Huff's group here to get it done. And I think we're heading towards a Southern Miss Troy battle for the West. And think, maybe the Cajuns will play a little spoiler here, but I just think those two teams have kind of separated themselves, and I like Southern Miss.
Yeah, Braylon Braxton, he's it's not just Braylon Braxton on the team, by the way. He has the 13 touchdown passes. It's that defense that's been pretty good, too. They got a couple sophomores, Ian Foster, the safety, and Chris Jones, the linebacker. Those guys are just bringing the wood. And so it's a little mix of defense and offense for the Southern Miss Golden Eagles. I always find that's those balanced teams, the old Appalachian States, the old James Madisons, the old Cajuns that can play defense and offense equally well that just end up winning the title. And right now, it really looks like the Eagles. I think the Eagles are just too balanced to lose this game, even though the Cajuns are going to be at Cajun Field, where they really haven't had much of a home field advantage, which is kind of a damn shame. But I guess we'll see. The Cajuns sort of have to win this game too. If they don't win the game, they're kind of they're in the not in good position to repeat as Sun Belt West champions. Last game of the night, Shane. This is where the hate comes in. I think they call it modern day hate, although they don't like saying hate anymore. I don't know if it's some sort of, hey, we need to tone it down a bit, lower the temperature. I don't get it. I'm not from that part of the world. I'm not part of the culture. Whatever. Georgia State Panthers 1-5. They go against the Georgia Southern Eagles. They're 2-4. 3 wins between them. We thought there would be more. It's 6 p.m. ESPN Plus. The Eagles are a 7.5-point favorite, and yeah, that's probably right. But this was supposed to be a big year for Clay Helton and quarterback J.C. French and Georgia Southern. Instead, the Eagles are winless in the belt. The team ranks 94th nationally for total defense, and the chances for winning the Sun Belt East are next to nil. Shane, what do you see out of this game?
You talked about it maybe being GJ Kinney's, throw everything at him because I really got to win this one game. It's definitely that for Clay Helton. I don't know if he's Georgia Southern's coach next week if they don't win this game. Honestly, with as much pressure as he's been under with the fan ire that he's gotten here recently. If they lose to a 1-5 Georgia State team, that struggled last week against App State, I think Clay Helton's in some real trouble. So I expect Georgia Southern to throw everything they have, maybe mix in some trickery and some things, and really get after it against Georgia State. I think they're going to pull this one out. It might still be close, but that's going to be a very motivated Georgia Southern team. And to be honest, Dylan McGee, I know we've talked about he's not the most energetic guy in conferences and stuff, but just signing off on his Sunbelt media call this week just kind of sounded like a little bit of a guy who's dejected to be at 1-5 right now. And so I like Georgia Southern in the Grown in Georgia Bowl. It's got a new name. It's not anymore.
Oh, it's the Grown in Georgia Bowl. Okay, I'll start calling it that. I can do that. I think one of the reasons why Del McGee is depressed is he's not getting the old TJ Finley, right? We know TJ Finley. He was great for the Bobcats. He was great for... Where was he before then?
He's been everywhere.
That's right.
He's been at Western Kentucky. Right. He's been at, I think, half the SEC. He's been a lot of places.
Yeah, he's been a lot of places. He's been pretty good. He has not been good for Georgia State, and who knows why. Maybe it's Georgia State doesn't have the right personnel, the right coaching. I don't know, but it looks like they're going to be putting Cameron Brown again back behind center. They seem to have a little more success with him in the last game, with him calling the shots. Maybe they'll get a little boost from that. But yeah, this feels like a game to me that the Eagles really have to dominate in order for the fan base to have more confidence in Clay Helton. The Eagles are 2-1 this year at Statesboro, which is good enough for me. And that's it, guys. That's it, guys. I keep acting like Tibbs is here, but he's not. Tibbs isn't here. It's just me and you, Shane. And that's it for Second and Short. We did it. Yeah, we did a good job. Without Tibbs, it was like second and way short.
Yeah, we did it in a good amount of time.
Yeah, because we have shit to do. We're married men. We got things to do, right?
Yeah. Kids.
Kids, pets, dishes, vacuuming,
Yeah.
whatever it takes. That's what we do.
Some
Shane,
boxes
do you-
upstairs to be taken out.
Shane, do you have any plugs, promos, or parting shots that you
How about a parting shot you inspired?
sure.
You inspired it earlier.
I did? Okay, great.
You mentioned how like we get off on a technicality here in the Sun Belts with Golden Eagles and Eagles,
Okay.
but how you really shouldn't have a conference with multiple teams with the same mascot nickname
Yeah.
situation.
We
We see it
should.
all over the SEC.
We do.
See it, all over like the American. How did they end up with 3 teams called the Owls? Like you couldn't put together a conference with 3 Owls if you tried.
No.
Somehow they did. I think going forward, there's so much stuff in the courts and Congress, all this legislation. People want to fix college sports. We need a law that conference realignment going forward. You can't join a league if there's already a team with the same mascot in there. We'll slow down some of this crazy realignment. Maybe we'll fix some of what we already have. Like, sorry, App State, you can't join a league with West Virginia. It just can't happen anymore. But let's fix some things so we don't have Tigers versus Tigers and Bears versus Bears and everything. It helps if you got a unique mascot. So congratulations to the Red Wolves, the Dukes, all these teams. You can go join any conference you want. The Cadence, you're in good shape. But, let's just make sure Ohio and Texas State don't end up in the same league one of these days. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of like unimaginative mascots, and I'm sick of them winding up in the same conference.
Yeah, we can only have so many Tigers and so many Bulldogs, and yes, oddly, so many Owls. You know what? Maybe just there should be a 20-year limit on your mascot. Like after 20 years, you're forced to come up with some new branding. That might be fun.
Yeah, or it could be terrible.
I don't really have. I guess I don't have a parting shot or a plug or a promo. Well, I guess I do. I have you seen The Black Phone?
The Black Phone?
Yeah, it's a horror movie.
No, I haven't.
No, do you watch a lot of horror movies?
Not a lot, and I haven't watched a lot of new movies either.
Oh, okay. Black Phone came out a couple of years ago, but the sequel's coming out on Friday, and the missus and I are going to watch that. So she said, Jeremy, you got to watch The Black Phone before you watch Black Phone 2, which makes sense. So I watched Black Phone 2, and I don't know if I was impressed by it, Shane. So I don't know if I'm going to be impressed by the next one, but I'll let you know if it's any good.
Okay.
That's it. That's all I got. A very sort of non-commental, not even like a recommendation of a horror movie. But I'll be watching Black Phone 2 on Friday.
To letting us know.
That's right. All right. Shane, good show. It was great to have you on. Maybe Tibbs will join us again someday.
Yeah, hopefully we'll all 3 get together at one point.